Welcome to this 2G1 based on a episode 2 extra. One of the first people I talked to for this episode was Tom Gibis, and while I was familiar with Tom Gibis just based on his voice on Naruto, I was really surprised at how fun my conversation with him. And there was a good snippet of the interview that was left on the cutting room floor because it didn't really fit into the Lobo episode. However, for all of you out there who love Naruto, who are interested in ADR or just voice acting in general, I wanted to share this clip with you so you could possibly learn and listen to the great Tom Gibis. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy.
In 2001, I think, is basically when I started doing voice acting, and I had done, I'd been acting. I'll just rewind. I grew up, went to school for acting. I went to Mankato State, which is now Minnesota State Mankato. I had studied acting. In Minneapolis. I'm from Minnesota. Minneapolis, I worked at the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis, the Children's Theater Company in Minneapolis, and a comedy club there called the Brave New Workshop, which is one of the oldest improv theaters in the country, sort of like Second City. And in 95, I think it was, I moved out to California and tried my hand at taking it to the next level. So I'd done a lot of stage, and I'd done a lot of local stuff in Minneapolis. I did a lot of commercials, and then I came out to California, and it was kind of like starting over a little bit. So at that point, when I was out in California, I was pretty much established. I think I had an agent. I'd been going out on stuff. I'd been getting a little some co-star work and some guest star stuff, and 2001, I believe, is when I started doing voiceover work, and I did a Digimon episode. And it was kind of because I had a friend of a friend who was a director for Digimon. Jeff Nimoy is his name. And I'd see him at parties, and we'd talk, and I'd say, hey, I've always had interest in voice work. How does that work? Or how could you hook me up? Or can you help me out? And he would basically say, well, do you know how to do ADR, which is dubbing? And I said, I've never done it, but I'm sure I could learn it. And he was like, I only take people that kind of have done it before and know what they're doing. And okay. I said, how do you get a job? If you don't have experience, how do you get the job? But how do you get the experience if you don't get the job, right? So it was this sort of vicious circle. And so basically he had kind of told all of our sort of circle of friends that, hey, I'd like to use you guys, but, unless you have ADR experience, you're really no use to me. And then I heard he was doing Digimon the movie, and he had called in my friend John Brady, which is how I knew him through, and it was an old friend of mine from Minnesota. And John had no ADR experience. So I basically called up Jeff Nimoy, and I said, you're bringing in John for this. He has no experience. I have no experience. But I think I have an interesting voice. I have a cartoon voice. I think I can do stuff for you. Can I at least audition? And he was like, okay, fine, you can audition. And he had brought in a ton of people, and the producers liked me a lot. And in the room, they, we had the audition, and they had me do a bunch of stuff, and I was like, great, and I'd love it, And then they started, have you ever done ADR before? Have you ever done... And I was like, well, no, I was honest. And, excuse me. And they said, well, we can't really use you for this because the movie was kind of a bigger deal for them. And so they said, but we got a couple Digimon episodes. We'd like to try you out. And if you do well on a couple of these episodes, then maybe there's some other opportunities here. And that was at Saban Entertainment, and I was like, "Great, happy to do it. Fantastic. It was better than the outcome that I thought I could do." And so I ended up doing a couple Digimon episodes, and then they had a project called Shinzo that I did, and they cast me, and basically they said as the lead in this character. I think it was I was going to say Ruji, but that was getting my stuff all mixed up. What was the name of that show? Anyway, it doesn't matter. That wasn't it. It was Shinzo was the name of the show. And so, but basically they said, we're going to hire you for 3 episodes. If it's not working out, then we're just going to go with somebody else. And so basically 3 episodes, it was like, I did the 3 episodes, then it was 4 episodes and 5 episodes, and I was like, are they going to fire me, or am I hired, or are we going to keep going? And apparently I wasn't a problem, so they just kept me, and they put me with a director who was pretty experienced, a guy by the name of Michael Sorich. And he was great. He was a great guy to learn. Now, you got to remember, this is before 2001. It was before Pro Tools. It was before a lot of the computer stuff that we have now. So,
Right.
at that time, what was that?
Right, because, it's nowadays you could do so much with a click of a button, and back then it was...
Exactly. And what we were doing was, like, Digimon is done in Japan, and then it's sent to the United States, and they make it for an American audience, and they add a English soundtrack to it. Now, the trick with that is it's already been animated, and then the script has to be translated, and if you translate straight from Japanese, it doesn't quite work, because they have different phraseologies, how they, so you have to basically rewrite it for English voice, and then you've got to, and this was the trick, make it fit.
Yeah.
Right? So you basically get something like, you have a line and you have to make it, it's like maybe six beats or something, and you have to get the line in that beat. And they'd say, you're half a second long, or you're 3 seconds long. Now, you could do a take, and it could take 20 takes to do a take, because you had to hit it. So not only were you doing a voice, doing a character, trying to make it come alive, do the acting part of it, right? But then you had to make it fit, which is very technical. And that was the whole concern about, had I ever done ADR before? And it was very frustrating. And I believe they said if you could do 20 loops an hour, you were okay. And, but some loops are a paragraph of dialogue, and some loops are, yes. One word, So, but they wanted to average about 20. In this day and age, the way it works now, they have this thing called Pro Tools, which is you can act the hell out of it, and if the writing is good, they can tweak it. They can speed it up, slow it down, they can move it forward. If you came in late, they can slide it back a couple frames so that it matches up with the mouth. They can do all of that with the computer. So now what happens is, in the old days, it would be the actor would do their performance, and then they would say, that didn't work, or that, good performance, but you need to speed it up a little bit, or you need to slow it down a little bit, or we got to fill, or we got to rewrite this part, to make it work. And so there was a lot of time where it's the actor doing it over and over and over again until you get it right. Now I basically lay it down once, or I lay it down to the point where they like the read, and then they'll make it work. And every once in a while they go, no, it's still too long, we're going to have to rewrite this. But for the most part, I'll do it 1 or 2 takes, and then they'll go, okay, hold on a second, and then they play around with it, and they're doing all the work. They're doing all the stuff instead of me doing it, and then they go, okay, we're out, moving on, next line, and you go down the list that way. So, way too much background on this than you need.
No, it's great. It's great stuff.
So that was in 2001. I got on Shinzo, and then from there, I was just working on a variety of different little projects with Saban, and then I think it was 2004 or 2005, I auditioned for, it might have been 2004, and then we actually started recording in 2005 for Naruto.
Yes.
And that was kind of a big deal, because they brought, everybody in town was there to audition for that show, and I had no idea how big of a deal it was at the time. It was just, to me, it was just another audition, and I was glad to have it. And it was kind of through people I knew at Saban, and but like anybody who was doing dubbing or voiceover work at that time was called in for that project, and then I got one of the roles, and it was actually a role I didn't think I was going to get, because it was kind of the cool kid, and I'm more of the, hey everybody, let's get going, that kind of guy.
Well, that's
high energy, and Shikamaru's very low energy, So
that's
anyway,
that's how I knew you, Tom, before I knew you, because when I was looking up people in the project, obviously, like, I knew Andrew, I knew your performance when I looked you up. My kid's a huge Naruto fan. This is 13 years later. It's still huge, and so I was like,
Yeah, and
Shikamaru.
I think we're on our 4th series, and plus there's all the video games and the movies and all of that. And what's great about it is the character grew up through that whole period. So I started off with a very young voice, and then now he's not approaching my age, but he's in his almost like late 20s now and early 30s. But he started off at 15, and so that's kind of cool that he's been able to grow and evolve and be part of this whole, sort of long storyline that they've done. And it's been a really great opportunity. And there was a time when, like, Naruto was really on fire, and that was probably around 2008, something like that, 2009. And that was like any kid you mentioned it knew exactly what it was. I used to say to my friends, I go, "Yeah, I'm famous if you're under 15." If you're over 15, you have no idea it's that. What is that show? Naruto? I don't know what that is. Oh, I think I've seen that. And it's one of those things too that, like my mom, people like that who, what is this thing? What is, you try and explain it and they have no idea, sort of ninja school thing. And, but once you start seeing it, you start seeing it everywhere.
Yep.
It's like, oh yeah, that character. Okay, I've seen that. That's okay. And you start seeing it. It's pretty crazy. And now we get, kids are all grown up that grew up on the show. So it's really interesting to be a part of that. So